And then I'll upload it later into the course curriculum so that you guys can all see it. So we're recording now. You'll see it in the course curriculum after we upload it, probably tomorrow. Let's do it. How do you guys feel about introductions? I'm just gonna start at the top, whatever the order is. And I think let's go with Andrea. Andrea? You're gonna have to unmute if you wanna say hi or introduce yourself. Oh, okay, mic isn't working. Cool, type in here and we will see you and we'll make it happen, whatever questions you have. Anna Marie, hello.
Hi, I'm from Davis, so just right outside California, Sacramento.
Wait, do you go to school in Davis or?
My husband does, he's a graduate student here.
Nice, and then what about you?
I'm a stay-at-home mom with my daughter, and then I started cooking about a year ago now. I took a class from Randy, who's also local.
Randy's like really close to me. She learned from me.
Yeah,
like
and she actually introduced me to Big Borderlands, and more recently, because I was hoping to go back to work because like my daughter's a year and a half now, but COVID hit, and so I decided I kind of want to try to do cooking a little bit more and see if I can do a little bit of side hustle with that.
Sweet.
So, to the
cool.
class and loving it.
I'm glad to have you here. Thank you. Next, we've got Gabriel. Gabriel's on mute. Here we go.
Hey, I'm Gabriel. Hey. I'm from Folsom, so not too far from you. Lisa,
nice.
Lisa, I stumbled on your YouTube videos, and I really like the way you teach, and I like your style. And I've never taken a cookie class before. I've been like I'm the undesignated or chosen family baker, and so I've been making Christmas cookies. But now I'm gonna post some of my Thanksgiving cookies. I'm getting so excited. Everyone's posting their pictures on the Facebook, so I'm like, okay, I'll do that too.
Right on. How are you liking the course so far?
It's awesome. I haven't watched everything yet, but I'm moving through everything. Yeah. And I love all the I love the workbook. I love the resources. I'm going to all the links, checking everything out. And I really appreciate all your details. And I can tell you guys put a lot of work into this.
Good.
Thank you.
Very, very happy to hear that. That's what we want to hear. So next, we've got Deborah. Hi, Deborah. Ooh, we got so many people on here now. Let's see. Deborah, Deborah S. Saval. Did you want to say hi, Deborah? Not trying to put you on the spot. There's no obligation. All right, so let's go down the list. Karen. Hi, Karen. Karen's on mute. Hi, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm from Hawaii, so I made sure to set my alarm since we're 2 hours. I'm super excited. I'm a full-time teacher. I bought your course, and I will admit I haven't started watching yet. I just did not want to miss out on the first offer of the course. I'm waiting for a Christmas break or maybe this Thanksgiving break to start watching things. I've always been a baker, and just decorating cookies has been really challenging for me, just getting that consistency, especially with this weather too, for
super wet and humid.
Yeah, but I mean, as a teacher, I just I do this. I'm that mentality, don't give up, keep practicing. I mean, I look back at cookies I've done 5 years ago, and I'm like, I can't believe I posted this on social media. This is so ugly.
We all start somewhere, right? That's the thing.
And then I look at the cookies, and even though I am very far from where I want to be, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that I can do this. So I'm definitely motivated. I spend hours and hours on Instagram watching your videos and other cookiers. I mean, I don't even know how many people I follow anymore. So super excited. I don't have specific questions today, but I really wanted to come meet you and just listen in.
Sweet. We're going to have a lot to talk about. I'm going to go back to Deborah because I noticed she unmuted. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this. You are awesome. All your recipes, the frosting tips, everything. It's just wonderful. It's
awesome.
Just
Where are you from?
Awesome. I'm from Michigan.
Awesome. We got people all over the place today. This is freaking awesome.
You're awesome.
All right, let's keep going. And then we have Michelle. Michelle's from Austin. Hi, Michelle from Austin. You got to unmute.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm
Hi.
I took one of your courses, the wet on wet.
The floral.
With the marker, with the.
Nice. Okay.
I love that. I love that technique. So, and I've, watched a lot of your videos and stuff. You're my cookie idol.
Oh my God.
I'm learning so much. I mean, I've always baked. I have a daughter who's in grad school at UNC Chapel Hill, and she's just in her first year. And ever since she was little, we always usually baked at Christmas time, usually on Christmas Eve, because that was the only time we had time, I had my act together to do it. But, just in the last several years, I've kind of gotten into decorating, and I have a lot to learn. I'm not what it is. I'm just doing it for fun. It's like my creative outlet.
Okay.
I'm a software consultant. That's what I do for a living. So it's not very creative.
I get it.
It can be, but not super creative.
It's different. It's totally different.
Yeah. So this is my creative outlet, and I love it.
I'm so happy to hear it. We're really happy to have you.
You're great.
Thank you. All right, and Adria, I think you're gonna have to tell me how to pronounce your name. Adria Valos is on. Andrea.
I got the mic to work. I can't get the camera to work.
That's okay. How are you? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit. Brooklyn?
Yeah, Brooklyn, New York. Baking is more of a hobby. I always loved it, and especially now with COVID, I just really, when I started following you, I kind of started to become more obsessed with the process of cookie making, and I think you're great, and I'm excited to be a part of the Zoom.
Awesome. Happy to have you here. And then we have Brittany. Brittany, am I saying that right?
Yes, it's Brittany.
Brittany.
Here, maybe I can. I'll see. We'll see if it'll allow my
there
video
we go.
to work. Hi. Hi, I'm Brittany. I currently live in Italy right now, so that's where I'm at. It's like nighttime here, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have a Zoom to catch. I live in it's like northern Italy. It's called Aviano.
Okay.
So that's currently where we are. I missed the first part of this, and I think this is like just an introduction thing. What are we doing here?
Yep, we're just doing intros for now. Where you're from, what why you cookie, or why you do what you do.
Cooking is actually like something that I just kind of got into. I actually started following you and like a few others because I'd see like the little flood videos all over my Instagram, and I'm like, well, that's really fun to watch. So I just started watching those, and I'm like, wow, I actually really love that. So I started just kind of following more and more and more, and that's what led me to your class. My husband, I actually was like, well, if you want to buy it, I dropped hints like all the time. So he bought it. So it's kind of gave me like an outlet here because, sense of community, it's something nice to have, especially when you're away from everything. So it's just kind of been like a creative outlet, just like a hobby for now, but I love it so far.
Why are you guys in Italy?
My husband's military, so we're stationed over here.
Got it. How are you guys, how's the COVID being handled over there now with the ups and downs?
It's been rough here. They're a lot more strict here than what like I've seen in the States. So right now we're currently actually recovering from COVID. So we're in quarantine until the end of this week, Thanksgiving actually. So things here are kind of strict. Like we're not really supposed to leave our towns, but we have a little bit of freedom still right now opposed to what we did at the beginning of the year. So it's just kind of a learning curve and just kind of learning to be, self-reliant right now. That's kind of the situation that we're in here. So, but it's working.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two Victorias. Victoria Bond. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, nice to meet you and everybody else. Thanks for hosting this. So I am based in San Francisco and I work in e-commerce. And prior to that, I was unemployed starting June for a couple months. And so super bored. My son was turning 4, and so I decided to bake my first cookies ever and start decorating, and then turned out that it was something very therapeutic and really fun. And I actually was not too bad at it. So decided to pursue that and kind of sold my first set in September, and it's kind of been this whirlwind.
That fast?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Ever since, and it's been really fun. And then I was like, I got to level up. So I took your class, and it's been really, really amazing. So really excited to be here and learn more.
Awesome. Welcome. And then we've got Victoria Wall. Hi, Victoria Wall.
Hi.
Hello.
I am a high school PE teacher, and I teach human anatomy. And so I've always done time in the kitchen to help kind of de-stress, whether I was baking breads or just cooking and kind of getting out of my brain for school. And so when COVID hit, I had been following you on social media, and I bought some of your recipes, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. Like, I have all the time now. I'm not running off to school. And so I started with your recipes, did some, funky stuff in March. And then when I saw your course was coming out, I was like, okay, like now I can get in. And kind of like Gabriel was saying, the book was great. It was really nice to kind of have like print it and have like an actual thing to flip through and read, because that's more my style. And I've sold a couple of batches of cookies, but it's just been like for friends that have been like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? So I definitely don't want to make a business out of it, but it's a great stress reliever, and kind of that artistic outlet without me being an artist, because I can't draw for anything.
Neither can I.
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying the course and making cookies.
Good. I'm so happy to hear it. Well, thank you guys again for making time today. I know it's like, there's no one time that works for everyone, so it's always nice when we do make the time to get together. So I just want to really open it up to you guys and get some get the questions going, see what you guys are struggling with, any just general like discomfort areas or anything that I can help with. So feel free to just speak up and just have a conversation. This is super, super casual. So go for it. First one's always the hardest one.
What tips do you have for painting on cookies?
Painting on cookies. All right, so I would say wait for your base layer to completely dry. If it's not dry, you're gonna have the risk of accidentally indenting it or disintegrating that icing. You wanna use a high-proof alcohol to paint with. That means some high-proof vodka. People love using Everclear for it. And that's really to reduce the amount of drying time. And because it's alcohol, it also evaporates super, super fast, so it doesn't disintegrate that icing underneath. If you use straight water, you can. I've seen it happen. It's just you gotta work a little bit differently, have a different consistency for your paint. So high-proof alcohol, wait for your icing to be totally dry before painting on it. And then you can play with what medium you wanna use, so whether that be gel color, or that be like the sugar art dusts, all of that work. They all look different. Sugar art dries usually matte. Usually when you use like vodka diluted with the gel color, it's a little shinier. But it can also be stickier. So there's pros and cons. So you kind of have to do like a cornstarch dusting if you're using gel and vodka mixed together. Is that helpful?
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah, ask all the questions. I'm here for it.
So I don't know, I'm just sensitive about this. It's just me, I guess. Yeah. But I've seen that people use that alcohol and vodka and whatnot. Is there an alternative to vodka? What is the purpose of using alcohol? Because I have some people who like don't drink alcohol, and I'm worried, I'm sensitive to that.
Alcohol evaporates right away, so there's actually no chemical alcohol left on your cookie after it's done evaporating. If that's still an issue, I've seen people use orange juice. Seems to work because it's like literally sugar anyway and not much like liquid water. So I think orange juice would be a good alternative. I've also seen people use extracts, so people use lemon extract or stuff, but that's all alcohol based as well. So it's going to be the same thing. It will evaporate. So yeah, totally valid question.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question in regards to using transfers. Is there a reason to put the transfer like on a dry flood versus just like dropping it in a wet flood?
Say that again. The transfer.
So like for instance, like I made little like candy cane transfers, like put on little cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason that I should put it like wait, like do the flood on the cookie, let that dry, and then like glue it on versus just like dropping it into the wet flood?
It depends on the look you want, I think. So when you're putting a transfer on a cookie surface that's completely dry already, you're not going to have like that perfect seal around the sides of the transfer, if that makes sense. When you drop the transfer on and you kind of put some glue on it and you adhere it to that surface, you might still see that gap. If you put it directly onto dry icing, I mean, not dry icing, wet icing, I actually prefer putting it onto wet wherever possible because it's more seamless that way. But a lot of people also struggle with like, it sinks too much into it, they press too hard or something like that, or they break the transfer because they've pressed so hard. So it just depends. You could totally do both.
Okay. Because I've only ever seen them like glued on normally, like on like the videos on Instagram. And so I was like, it feels like it make more sense to just drop it, but I wasn't sure if there was
I did like the giant transfers, I did like these Shiba Inu dog cookies a while back. And I did like big transfers. They were like almost 2 inches big. I had them all done, you know, the week before. I'd flooded my cookie and dropped it straight in there, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next.
I have a question about bleeding. I actually have an example because I'm just staring at it and it's annoying me. How do I switch? Oh, here we go. So in this instance, like you see how that yellow is bled into the red?
Yep.
Is that just because I had to just wait for that to dry? Or like what's going on with that? Or how do I fix that?
Yeah, so bleeding is a really, really interesting problem because there's no like one answer that will fix all of it. It could be a combination of factors. Humidity is a huge factor when it comes to icing bleeding, but also structural integrity of that icing. So if it's too thin, it's going to bleed. If it's overly saturated, it's going to bleed. If you've mixed your icing, let it sit for a while. So you know how when you let icing sit, there's that separation of the different layers, the liquid to the things that are a little more dense. And when that separation happens, you're destroying the structural integrity of the meringue powder you're using in your icing. When you destroy that structural integrity, more things get into it. So I always tell people before you start your icing, you have to massage it real well when it's in the piping bag if you've stored it in there, or just dump it out and give it a good mix again and bring it all back together. So those things affect bleed a lot. What you can also do is wait for that red to completely dry for like 5-6 hours before adhering the next layers on. And then I noticed often that if your base layer, the bottom layer is a dark color, like a navy or a red or a black or something very highly saturated, and then you put a light color on it, it loves to like seep into that lighter color. So the only thing that I've been able to figure out is just letting that layer dry more. You have a dehydrator at home?
Yes.
I would dehydrate it for like 15 minutes and then I'd set it aside for at least 2-3 hours before putting those lines on.
Got it.
And thickening up the top layer, so the lines, right, you can see the bleeding on the lines. If you thicken up that consistency a bit more, it'll reduce the odds of the red bleeding into it and stuff.
Okay. And then for the follow-up, how do I fix that then? Do I just scrape it off and just start over?
You can scrape it off and start over, or just live with it and be okay with it, because I can guarantee you, a lot of, like for us, we're like looking for those perfect little details, but most people are not going to judge you on that, especially your recipients.
Cool. Thank you.
You can also, alternatively, pipe right over your yellow lines instead of scraping it off.
Okay.
Pipe right on top of them.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. What else, guys?
I have another icing question. So I've recently started swapping out a lot of stuff for essential oils. And so have you made your icings with essential oils rather than using extracts? And then what would that do to the icing if you have played around with that a bit?
Oils are fats, I believe. They're suspended in some kind of a fat. Will break your meringue powder. So you're going to decrease the integrity of that icing. So more bleeding, the consistency might be funky. So that will definitely be things that you should watch out for.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And then there are some flavorings out there. There are some brands that have a little bit of oil in them, and it could potentially soften up or cause your icing to be brittle. That's another side effect. Yeah. All right, guys, what else? There's no question that's too silly or stupid. Don't feel that way.
Mine is kind of silly. I keep wondering, how do I stop spending money? I keep seeing so many things online, and I keep like, oh, I want this. Oh, I want this. And then I get all these things and I don't know what to do with it all.
Okay. So all you need to start cookie decorating is that basic list in that ebook at the very towards the beginning. That's all you need. Everything else is a want. Okay.
Okay.
The most practical thing I can tell you is you got to set a budget and stick to it.
Okay.
And have somebody be your accountability partner, like a friend or a partner, like a spouse or something, because otherwise it's endless.
It really is. You can just keep buying and buying.
Yeah, and one of my friends, we this topic comes up a lot actually, but one of my friends actually, she's not allowed to buy anything for herself until she's made a certain amount based on how many cookies she's sold.
Oh.
So it's a self-sustaining cycle, right? Especially if you're doing it for hobby.
Right. And that's what I mainly do it for. I do it for family and friends and things like that. At the hospital, they love to eat food. I'm a respiratory therapist, so anytime I bring food, they love it.
Yeah, and thank you for your service. Holy crap, especially now.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Especially like sprinkles. Like I went to that one site that you recommended, and I'm like, oh, I want those, and I have so many sprinkles now.
It's endless. It's not cheap, and it's like, the worst part is sometimes you buy these things and you end up not using them for a while or not using them full. Yeah, we're all guilty of that. It's a consumerism kind of world we live in right now. So set a budget, girl.
Okay, got it. Yeah. I will.
Good. All right, what else we got?
Going back to the dehydrator question.
Yeah.
So let's say you have like 60 cookies, right? And you only have they can only fit. How do you rotate them in and out of the dehydrator without overdoing it? Like how do you keep track of all of that timing?
In my head, that's the crappy here. But so for me, I have a bun rack in addition to my dehydrator, and I usually work, so when I was at like the height of my cookie decorating, like physical volume cookie decorating, and I was doing 5 or 6 dozens a day, and that's all I was doing, I would rotate. So I have it set up by top to bottom of this one in first, this one in second, this one in third. And then I would just continue to rotate, because by the time I finished decorating the third tray and had that in the dehydrator, the first tray is ready to come out, and it would just continue on rotation. So setting things up in a way that you know what order you did what in is super, super helpful. And it's dependent on what kind of orders you're working on, how many, what the design looks like as well.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question actually about like freezing the cookies. Do you prefer like to bake them ahead of time and freeze them and then take them out as you need them? Or do you like to make them just fresh and within a couple days frost them and sell them or give them away or whatever?
It all works. And I think no matter what approach you take to freezing cookies at whatever stage, as long as it fits in your schedule, it's fine. For me personally, I like to decorate like 4 dozen cookies at a time, end to end, which means the only thing I have pre-prepped is the dough in the freezer. So my dough prep is really about the only prep stage where I freeze my stuff. And then I bake, decorate, and package within a 24 to 36 hour window. I always plan for it like in my schedule.
Okay.
And when it's fully packaged, I throw it in the freezer until I'm ready to sell them or give them away.
Oh, okay. Okay, but you don't see any difference like in the taste or texture or anything like that?
Oh, there's definitely a difference. And I think it depends on what stage you do the freezing.
Okay.
I definitely noticed that the freezer is kind of one of those things, if you have it in an airtight container, it distributes and evens out the texture. So when you get a cookie out of the oven, it's like crisp around the edge and then softer in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you put it in the freezer, that softness kind of permeates and evens out throughout the cookie. So it changes, and the heat seal actually does the same thing because you're putting it in an airtight seal, allowing it to kind of evenly distribute that moisture. So I noticed that if I bake the cookies and I put the baked naked cookies in the freezer and I take them out to decorate them, they're a little softer than what I'm used to.
Okay.
Because usually I decorate them after I bake them and they're harder and then softer on the inside.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Those slight differences. But the end product should be the same. All right, guys.
I have a question. I don't think you covered it, but my Wi-Fi kind of cut out for a minute. So, okay, you got your crusted over cookie, like it's pretty much done. I'm maybe waiting for like a couple more things to dry on it. Okay, so say I like hit the edge of it and it like completely crinkles in and just kind of looks destroyed in that area. Is there any way to kind of combine, like, to fix it with put your wet icing back on there? Is there any way to almost band-aid that to where you don't have to just toss out the whole cookie, or is it just kind of just be done and go on with it?
It depends on how badly you've dented it. There's a lot of things that you can fix. If it's a small dent on the side, you can take a little bit more of a stiffer icing, slightly less stiff than toothpaste, patch it on like you would like grout, right?
Okay.
And then use a slightly wet paintbrush to kind of even out the surface and just hope for the best. That's a really easy fix for the small stuff, almost like when I was fixing the crater. So if you've taken the class and you've hit the cratering part where I just like added more icing, kind of smooth it over with my finger or my brush, you could take that same approach, but sometimes it's done. Other times you can cover it up with something else and just pretend that
it wasn't there.
It's like, oh, it's fine, we'll just cover it up like a flower or something.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't like to waste, if possible. We already go through plenty of plastic, plenty of other stuff, so anywhere where we can save it and prevent it from going in the garbage is a plus.
Definitely. Thank you.
And I don't know if any of you guys do this, but if you do want to think about like offering samples or making samples for the holidays, you can make a dummy dough. You can Google dummy dough. And instead of using like all the good stuff and expensive ingredients and stuff in your dough, you can make like basically like it's a tasteless salty dough or something like that, but it looks like a sugar cookie. And that can save you some money and less waste as well.
Lisa, I have a question about some people say that they cut out their cookies and then freeze them for 15 minutes before they put them in the oven. Is that something you recommend?
Depends on the recipe, as well as the temperature of your dough when you're working with it. So a lot of times I see people do that as a way to prevent spread, but spread isn't just the temperature of your dough. It's your the ratio of your wet to dry. It's the baking temperature as well as the temperature of your butter, which affects the state of your fat when you're making your dough. So I put when I'm rolling out my sheets and then when I'm baking them, if there's a couple minutes of lag in between, I stick my pan in the freezer just as a place to store it so it doesn't melt too much. Otherwise, that butter is going to melt out of your dough and you're going to have spreading problems. So nothing wrong with it, not absolutely necessary. I would say when your sheet goes straight from freezer to oven, you're going to drastically decrease the temperature in your oven at that initial baking first couple of minutes. So you might actually have to adjust a little bit your baking time.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense and answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Can I add a follow-up to that?
Absolutely.
So I actually do that, and I posted that on the Facebook group because somebody had a question about that, and I just was sharing like my go-to. But see, I have a sugar cookie recipe that the people around me who eat them has said, do not change that recipe.
Yeah.
So I love what you say about the ratios, because I've never thought about that before, but it's super important. But then again, I've just found like the system that works for me.
Yeah.
Like I'll cut and I'll freeze for 15 minutes, but I'll have the oven going. So like when I get done with that 15 minutes, I pull them out of the freezer and then right into the oven.
Yep, that works too. So finding your workflow works. Some people bake 2 sheets at a time. I can only do 1 or else one of them gets totally screwed up and it's a waste. So some people bake on convection. I never got it to work well in my environment. So you gotta do what works for you. But I think what people miss is that it takes a lot of like repetitions to figure that out.
I have a really specific question.
Let's go, I love it.
Really specific.
Okay.
So like I say, I've been loving all your resources. I've been reading your blog. So doing the course, reading the workbook, and referencing your blog as well. Yep. So I'm trying to step up my game here. That's the whole goal for me, right? Because I've been doing this a little while and it's like, okay, either I'm going to stay the same or I'm going to get better. And I want to get better. So that's why I'm here. But so I really like I've seen a lot of them on social media, the posts with the fonts and stuff like that. I love that. And that's kind of what I want to learn to do. So I made the investment, I bought a camera, and I was kind of looking around, reading reviews and stuff. And then I went,
a camera or a projector?
I'm sorry, projector.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And I was reading reviews and people were like, don't buy a Pico, whatever you do. I've heard so many problems about them. They're like, I know a lot of cookiers use them, but I've heard so many problems. So I didn't. I went with an Casio, which was one that you had recommended. So I bought the Casio, I bought the stand, and I can't flip the image.
You got settings? You looked at the settings on your thing? Did you contact the manufacturer and ask them how to do it? And what did they say?
Well, the customer service was like, they couldn't figure out how to do it. And then I told them actually when it warms up, it actually flips the image, but then when it's all the way warmed up, it flips it back. And then I'm like, okay, so there has to be a way. And then they're like, email support. And I'm just like, oh God.
Email support?
Yeah, I did. But naturally, I'm like, I feel like when I email somewhere, sometimes, it's going to go into Neverland. So I did email support and I'm like, well, here's a try.
Right, they should support their product. That's a really weird thing that it flips back. Yeah, I have no idea.
And I've tried Googling it and looking for it because, troubleshooting answers on the internet, everything's on the internet. Nothing about the Casio projector. I'm like,
oh.
Sorry. Hi, random side note for you. Just like a little trick in the interim I've heard of is like using pretty much any like photo app, you can flip images. Like there's like a mirror image setting you can do to at least help you in the meantime until you figure it out. Like that way, if you're dealing with text, at least you can still work with it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I thought about that too. And I was looking at that and I was just like, but I just invested this money in this projector. I'm like, it should do what I want it to do.
As a should, but maybe it's not perfect like everything else. So maybe there's something we're screwing up, or it is actually messed up, or there's a glitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, technology, it's great, but it's got drawbacks.
Thanks. Yeah.
It wasn't helpful, but it's just, that's the reality, right?
The manufacturer offered, when they got done with me on the phone, they're like, well, why don't you send it back and we'll send you another one. And I just got it. So it's like,
that's fine. Send it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
And then if you get to the point where, you don't even want to use a projector, you can use the tissue paper method. Are you familiar with that? For transferring text. It's a little more work, I think, but basically you print out or trace your font using tissue paper. You kind of put it up against your screen or whatever, use an edible marker, kind of trace it, and then you put the tissue paper on your icing and trace it again. That way a little bit of the ink seeps through the tissue paper, giving you a guide for piping. I think it's more work because you got to do tracing like twice, and I'm lazy, so, but it works in a pinch. All right, friends, what else?
I have a question. If this is I watched your video, so I made your dough recipe once, and I really love it. It's great. But I had a question about your video. Like when you're dumping all the ingredients in and you're weighing everything, like you don't weigh it before you put it in the bowl? You just
because it's more work.
Right, understood. But like, what if you accidentally put too much brown sugar or whatever? You just have to like
keep it out or go slow.
Yeah, go slow. Yeah, I love that. I love the whole technique that you taught me when I took the other class about mixing everything in one bowl. So I'm all about minimalist stuff. So I just want to ask that. And then on your vanilla bean paste,
yeah,
put it in a squeeze bottle, right?
Yeah.
How do you get it in there?
I pour very slowly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like, yeah, there's no secret. You could use a funnel if you want.
Okay.
I just pour it directly from like the giant bottle into a smaller squeeze bottle.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No one has ever asked me that before.
I know that's kind of a lame question, but like when I got a small jar of it, and so when I scoop it out, it just then you have to kind of scrape it off the thing, and I'm like,
yeah. So I usually, if it's a smaller bottle, I just pour slowly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Cool. Wipe the side on like the mixer blade or something like that, so I'm not getting it on anything else. All these little things come down to like using as much as I can without wasting.
Right, understood, and that's where I'm at too. Thank you.
All right, where are these icing questions? I want more icing questions. It's hard, huh, when you're put on the spot. Hi, Deborah. Do you have a question?
Hi. No, I'm just trying to think. I was thinking of myself practicing the other day and what kind of issues I ran into. And I was making those little snowflakes, your mini snowflake.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a problem with the teardrop thing. I was just trying to do it. I don't know if it was my consistency or what, but it kind of was running a little bit together, but it just didn't look as pretty as yours. And I tried and tried.
Yeah, it's just so much practice. I think people really underestimate how much time it takes to get really comfortable with all this.
Yeah, because it seemed like you kind of whipped through it, and then when I tried to do it, they were all different sizes.
It's not a fair comparison, not at all. but you'll get there, I promise. You'll just go through a couple hundred snowflakes, and by the time you're done with that, you're like, I got this.
There you go. I was doing the snowflakes and the mini Christmas trees, so I kept trying to practice with those.
Yeah.
You are going to do more videos, right?
I would like
another class.
I would love to do more classes. So I was actually supposed to do like a live thing with Chivo. They do a lot of streaming and stuff like that, but I'm like kind of wiped out after this year.
Mm-hmm.
And just trying to like figure out recouping, but for sure we'll do more classes. And I think the plan is everyone here has bought like the base course, Next year, we're going to kind of expand on the base a little bit. I'm probably going to add in a Valentine's Day course, and I will release it to all of you guys for free, and then we'll release like course registration for the general public again. So that's
that would be awesome.
Yeah. So
I love all the frosting techniques. Like I had 16 bowls on my counter, mixing everything in like a different color for each bowl and all that kind of stuff. And actually, when I first watched it, I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. There's no way that's going to work. And I did it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I barely have any dishes to do now.
Dude, I hate dishes. Also,
I do too.
my husband does a lot of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we could reduce it, everything's about reducing, easier, faster.
Well, I just appreciate all of those tips because I think I've pretty much used all of them.
Good. I'm so happy.
I bought your bags. I love your bags, your piping bags. I've never done tipless before, like never. And I decorate cakes and stuff. I mean, just for fun, just for family, just for friends. But, you know, I do a pretty good job at it. And I've never gone tipless, ever. I didn't even know it was a thing.
You should need that on a shirt. Go tipless.
Yes. And now it's just awesome because I don't have all those tips to wash and all the, what are they, couplers and all that other stuff. It's just awesome.
Yeah, no, it's pretty life-changing, and I think it's gaining popularity. I don't know if any of you guys, when you were doing cookies before or something like that, you know, people have squeeze bottles, right, that they use to decorate cookies with. How in the world do people clean those things?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Right? Like, oh my God, this makes me want to kill myself.
Dishwasher.
Yeah, dishwasher. There you go. I'm going to go down the list of questions people had for the ones that couldn't attend and just kind of go over it. And if you guys have anything you want to add, please do jump in. I'm going to skip the branding one for now, mainly because we don't have people on here that do branding. I'll do it at the end. So Michelle Arnaud is like top time-saving hacks, thinking about how to work smarter, not harder. Yeah, so I think a lot of the way that I do cookies is already smarter, not harder. And a lot of the whole course, you know, we talk about all these things that could save you time, and it's all the little things. So the dishwashing, that's a huge time saver. And the cleanup, weighing everything in one bowl, the cleanup. I think what people really get curious about is when you get into that Christmas cookie decorating zone and you've got like hundreds of cookies that you're pumping out, how in the heck to make that faster? Assembly line. So I assembly line my steps, my layers, everything. So I pre-prep my dough. I freeze my dough. Always have dough in the freezer. Like, this is my #1 tip for anybody, because you never know when the urge hits you and you like, I gotta pump out some cookies because I got stuff in here. Always have dough. I like to work in 4 dozen increments, end to end, and fully just bake, decorate, seal, throw them in the freezer. So use your freezer. It's like my best friend. And then when I talk about kind of assembly line, I do all the flood at once. I do all the airbrushing at once. I do all the details at once. And that's how I like to work. Move your cookies as little as possible. So if you don't absolutely have to use a dehydrator, or, you know, I like to decorate as many cookies as can fit into my dehydrator in one go. That's kind of how I plan how much I'm going to do. That way I'm only moving my cookies like twice, once to the dehydrator tray and once back to its like normal tray for the final drying period. So move things as little as possible. Have them arranged on your dehydrator tray or your baking tray in such a way that you can kind of just rotate things. So you're never really touching the cookies or moving your cookies around when you're decorating. You have them all lined up, facing the same way or in a circle, something like that, to make it easier on you. That way you're not doing this back and forth thing the whole time. And also, we don't want to be touching the cookies all the time either, right? Using tools that help you. So going to the tipless bags and things like that are really, really helpful. Batch making and freezing your icing is another one of those things. I really like to mix my icing fresh, because that way it keeps its structural integrity. And what I mean by fresh is I make my base, I freeze my base. That's about the only thing that I freeze very regularly. And then when I'm ready to use it that day, I take it out, let it come down to room temp for a couple of hours, and then I make all my icing and I use my icing right away. If I have any leftovers, I'll put it back in the freezer. But otherwise, I like to use my icing fresh. It prevents bleeding. It prevents things from caving in, so that cratering that you see a lot, not only with small areas, but across like a whole cookie. If your icing sat around for a while and it's starting to separate and you didn't give it a really good mix, you get a surface that's slightly more kind of caved in towards the middle. Saw a couple of pictures of that on the Facebook page. So that's generally icing that's sat around for a little bit.
I have a quick question on like the icing and freezing it and everything. So if you're doing like 4 dozen cookies normally, is that like one batch of icing, or is that a double batch normally?
One batch normally, yeah. I can do 3.
Sorry, what was that? It cut out a little bit.
What was that?
You say it was a single batch or a double batch?
Single batch.
Okay.
So a 2-pound bag of sugar is what I used for about 3 to 4 dozen cookies, just depending on how much. Florals always take so much icing.
Okay. I feel like that's where I've been struggling. I end up wasting a lot of icing because I don't want to run out, and so I make like a huge amount of the one color, and then I'm like, okay, I used this much of this bag.
Let's sit on that for a second. Let's sit on that, because there's a couple of things you can do to make that process easier for you. So to kind of calculate how much icing you're going to be using, I like to trace the cutter on a piece of paper, put just like white icing, flood it, or do whatever, your design on it, weigh it before and after. Now you know how much icing you've got to use. Do the math. Add a little bit extra for a buffer. And that's the same concept with dough, or if you guys are making like cookie decorating kits, because like who the heck wants to overmake or undermake, God forbid, icing for kits? So I always do that pre-prep of weighing and then figuring out how much of each color I need.
I need to get on that.
Yeah.
Since I have you, I just have another question as far as like coloring icing.
Yeah.
Do you know of any resources with, especially like with the Master Elites, of like color guides? Because for whatever reason, like your images have been super helpful, like that you had done, I think, for CookieCon. But like with gel coloring, I find it easier because like the color you see is essentially the color you get. But like when I'm trying to mix the Master Elites, I end up with weird colors that I don't want.
So on the Sugar Art website, if you go to the listing for the Master Elites, I'm gonna pull it up right now, the Sugar Art, and I'm gonna drop it in the chat. Because if you go to this section, I lied, hold on. I need a moment. All right, so on the Sugar Art website, I'm gonna drop this into the chat, but I'm also gonna share my screen so you can kind of see what I'm looking at here. Can you guys see?
Yep.
Okay, so I just sent you guys a link, and it's actually to this listing. They have like this set of measuring spoons specifically for Master Elite, because all of us just suck at figuring out how much Master Elite goes into our icing to get whatever. It really depends on how much icing you're starting with and what tone you're trying to achieve, but they've got a video here and it's actually pretty cool. Oh my God. Okay, sorry. Anyway, watch the video. It kind of shows you the slightly different tones that you can achieve with all these different things, but go slow. Anna Marie, can you tell me, like, what do you struggle with the most? Is it undersaturating, oversaturating, or is it just all over the place?
I feel like I normally undersaturate, and then I just have a hard time like mixing to get a different shade. So like I wanted like a slightly different shade of green than like what they had offered. So I was trying to like mix 2 colors, and then it just got, it was like not saturated enough, and then it got like oversaturated all of a sudden. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing a really dark green now. That's fine.
Some white to tone it back.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so like I always keep, let's see. So Master Elites are great, but I do think there's a learning curve when it comes to using them, and it's not always like super beginner friendly. It's not even friendly for a lot of like intermediate people, mainly just because it's different. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. But these are like my two best friends. So this is a Chef Master. It's Chef Master gel color in white. This is my favorite white when it comes to just general purpose white. So the Master Elite white I love, but this is what I use more because it's super affordable. And it's the white that is, it saturates really well without using too much of it. So it's pretty strong. I use this to put in my base icing, just to give it that white tone to kind of offset that vanilla extract. And I also use this if I want to tone that color back and lighten it up a little bit. So Chef Master White Liquid, this is a big container. It's going to last you a while. I also own the Chef Master Airbrush White. This is like a toned down version of that gel. I use this to airbrush, but I do also use it to kind of thin out my icing occasionally, or to lighten it or to make it more white. You don't need both unless if you're doing a lot of airbrushing. So I actually think that gel colors are more easy to work with, especially if you're not familiar with the Master Elites, but I'm gonna take a note right now because I'll do a video on Master Elites. It's just a bigger learning curve. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna do a.
Please do, Lisa, because I use AmeriColor, and I just bought some Chef Master because I saw another cookier using it, and I was like, let me try.
Yeah.
But I think your point about icing saturation.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And I gotta say, AmeriColor, the only reason I kind of noticed the differences between the brands, I was using AmeriColor white in my base icing and the Chef Master white, and it took so much more AmeriColor white to get it to white than it took Chef Master, right? And I'm like, So I looked at all the other colors and I started playing around with the gels. And guys, Chef Master is killer. If you want a good gel, solid gel brand, they're great. Sorry, we went on a tangent and I got all excited about gel color.
Thank you for your, thank you for that. Like I never even thought of like using white to lighten. So
tone it back, yeah. Fix boo-boos, another boo-boo.
Yeah, like icing coloring is just like, because I'm not artistic at all. I'm like very similar to you. So it's like color theory, I get a little bit, but then Chef Master or the Master Leads have like thrown me a whole new curveball.
It is, and it's also tricky. We occasionally, because we sell Master Elites on our website, occasionally we get these emails like, you sent me like 5 wrong colors because my emerald is yellow and like my whatever is white. I'm like, you gotta watch this video because they are really trippy, but they do change when it's activated by liquid. So it's hard. I'm gonna talk to Holly. We're gonna get a video together and we'll put it on YouTube so everyone can see it.
Can we stay on icing color for a second, Lisa?
Heck yeah.
So I got to tell you, Emery, I struggle with the same thing. And I literally like will Google, because I was making some Thanksgiving stuff, which I'll post up for everybody to see. But I was working on like some colors and getting them like the right color and really listening, having you in my head, Lisa, about like how to do that. And I gotta tell you, when you were making the Halloween cookies and you put all those extra onions, it made me cringe because I'm like, what is she doing?
No waste, but I make so many people crazy with that, yeah.
And it just bewildered my mind to watch you. I'm like, okay, Gabe, just take a breath, watch her, watch
Don't
what
freak.
she's doing. Because I'm like, she's gonna turn it into this magical color. And it was like magic because I swear, I have mixed color before and it just like turned black. I'm just like, that is not the color I was going for. So what's your advice? Because like I say, I cringe when you were mixing like all those different colors. I'm like, what color is she gonna make?
You and 80% of people watching those videos cringed and sent me a message and said, you're making me crazy. I think not being afraid to try it and knowing that it's okay to screw it up and, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You waste a little bit of icing in the worst case. Otherwise, you end up with a nice muddy brown or dirt looking color or black, and it's not the end of the world. Black is actually crazy useful because you can use it to kind of deepen colors or darken them up. If you're starting out with a lime green, you can bring it almost to a forest green or like army green using just black. So not being afraid to screw it up. That's how I got where I was. I've done a lot of ugly things, but you know, I would also caution, however, that with a lot of different brands, they use different bases for their colors. So you'll see in some brands, if you dilute, for example, their black enough, it's got a magenta tone to it. So it has bits of magenta. Or if you get some on your hands and you wash your hands, you have magenta left over. Other blacks have blue or green in them. So based on that, it can have a different effect on the color that you end up with. Experiment, buddy. It'll be great. You can't really screw it up, right? Like when you say it's going to be like screwed up or whatever, it's not that bad. Make some Mickey Mouses, Mickey Mouse ears. Make some Mickey Mouse ears. There you go. You used up your black. All right, what's next?
Can I ask a question about coloring my icing? So
yeah.
I've just been doing, you know, small batches here at home to give away as gifts. So I haven't been keeping track of how much of every color, whether it be gel or master elites that I'm putting in. And I'm kind of just making colors as I go until I'm satisfied with it. Mm-hmm. But if I want to venture off and eventually sell them, should I be taking note of how much I'm putting? Because I'm thinking that I'm going to make samples and they're going to see a certain color. And then when it comes time to selling them, they might be off.
So my general guidance to that is close enough is close enough. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my general guidance. Obviously, you don't want to become one of those memes where it's like expectation versus reality, right? You don't want to do that. But I don't anticipate most people are going to be that off. So if you want to get really, really be very, very precise, I definitely recommend writing down what you do and just documenting your colors. So how much icing you used versus how much coloring you used and what color you used. Super helpful. I also mix by eye. I never, ever write it down. I'm too lazy. I'm not lazy in other areas, but I'm really lazy in some areas, and this is one of them. Because it's just not worth the heartburn for me to get it to like the exact tone, where the only way you could tell they're different is if you held them side by side. So another trick is if you're selling these cookies, you want to make sure that that whole batch is consistent, that you're giving to one person. That way nobody is looking at your cookies going like, hey, this is not quite Tiffany blue. Something like that, right? That's a notorious color for getting really just not quite right. And if you can make their whole batch all the same, all consistent, that's a win. The only time it becomes kind of like, I mean, if you really want to be picky, and I really want to be picky, is when I get two of the same thing and they look slightly different. So control who you give them to and get it close enough.
Thank you.
Yep.
Lisa, this might be kind of a silly question, but I saw in your recipe for the royal icing about the cream of tartar. Do you use that versus the white, like the Master Elite white, or do you leave it out, or?
Yep. So the answer is it depends. If I'm traveling and I have to make icing, I prefer to keep all of my like ingredients dry as much as possible. So if I'm traveling, I'll actually pre-mix everything in like a gallon Ziploc, and I'll put cream of tartar in it and not have to deal with the white gel or white coloring.
Okay.
Cream of tartar is an acid. It whitens things up. It also kind of reduces your bleeding a little bit. I also have like pre-made icing mixes that I do occasionally, and I always use cream of tartar in that because when you add in vanilla, it's going to get a little bit yellow toned, creamy toned, and I don't want the person using that to have to worry about toning it to white. So those are really the only cases I would use cream of tartar.
Okay, but you don't need both, right? I mean, it's like one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you prefer, like, do you ever use like clear vanilla instead of like the regular vanilla so that it doesn't tint it like that yellowy color?
I don't like the way it tastes. I can taste clear vanilla from like a mile away for whatever reason.
Oh, really?
Something in there that throws me off, and I can taste it. And I always know when someone uses clear vanilla, but that's just me. So if it doesn't bother you, you should absolutely use it.
Does anybody else here use the clear vanilla? Okay, me too.
And that's fine. I know so many people who use clear vanilla and they're so happy with it, and their clients are absolutely happy with it. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think maybe I should make a batch with the regular vanilla just to taste the difference, because I've always used clear vanilla.
Yeah, and you never know. You might actually hate regular vanilla. That's the other thing. Some people
Maybe.
are like, whoa, what's this?
Somebody said making using clear vanilla versus regular vanilla. If you use regular vanilla, it doesn't get your base as white.
Yes.
That's why I use
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But clear vanilla is partly artificial, right?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So that's really the only difference, is it keeps it white, and you may or may not taste the difference, and that's totally cool either way.
But now I'm really curious. I think the next batch I make, I'm going to use regular vanilla just to
Report
see.
back.
Yeah, I'm really curious now, because I seriously think I have always used it. I've gone to like the cake and candy supply and bought the clear vanilla, like especially for my frosting when I was making cakes and stuff.
Yeah. Vanilla. Oh, I'm like, what brand do you use?
It's the Wilton brand that I get from there, from the cake and candy supply.
Okay. What's in that? Oh, it does. Okay. Sorry, I'm Googling it because I'm super curious. Yeah, whatever works for you. Let us know what you think of it when you're.
Oh yeah, definitely. I will.
All right.
I'm gonna make a batch right now.
I love it. All right, I'm gonna go through the other Facebook questions, and then again, feel free to jump in. And I'm on here until I finish those questions. I will not leave. Okay, right now my biggest thing is I feel overwhelmed with all the options as far as colors, cutters, packaging, etc. Okay. I don't know who asked that, but
probably me.
Just like, was that you, Deborah?
I think so.
Oh my God, it is. Okay, so we went over that already.
Yeah.
What's up? All right, so storage.
Wait, Lisa.
Yeah.
We touch on that just for a second? Because I was looking for this, and I apologize if you've already covered this or there's a link somewhere. Okay. Maybe you can correct me. But I love your packaging, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't started heat sealing yet, but it's something I want to look into in time. Right now, I'm just really loving the resealable or the sealable cello bags, plastic bags. I like those.
Where you peel the thing and you like, yeah, okay.
Super easy. I love that. And for years, I've been using the large gift bags and then tying ribbons on them. And that takes so much time. It looks great, but it takes so much time. And so my question is, your boxes, where do you get your boxes? I love them.
Yeah, check the ebook. There's a whole section on packaging, boxes and stuff. And I link you to what my preferences are, and it is kind of condensed down to a smaller selection, because you guys can go crazy with packaging design alone. You can go crazy. So I list like my main 6 or something like that.
But I think the packaging makes such a huge difference. I never thought of using like those craft boxes or anything. And like you said, Gabe, I've always tied the top with ribbon or curling ribbon, and it takes way too long. So I actually purchased some of the boxes, Lisa, that you had recommended, and the cookies look so cute in there. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, we eat with our eyes first, and when you see things that look nicely put together, it's very, very appealing.
Gabe, buy the boxes.
Clear bags, you're gonna love them.
I have the heat sealer too, and I use that, and that works great.
What was that, Deborah?
I have the heat sealer. I just recently started using that, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a shelf life thing, Gabe. It just really extends the shelf life so much. All right,
while we're on equipment for a second, Lisa, side note, I just totally want that sheeter. I'm telling everyone, like, it's on my Santa list, do it.
So it's really awesome, but it's a $700 investment, right? That's the first thing. It is heavy as hell. And it works with dough that's within that 12-inch kind of width thing, and it's absolutely fabulous. And I've made pasta with it. It's awesome. You can roll it like paper thin. So you can even go from paper thin to like 12 millimeters. It will be life-changing. I support you. Go get one. You'll love it. Here, drop $700. No big deal. All right, let's see. Going back to that, my list of questions here. All right, we talked about how much royal icing you'll need. Storage recommendations and timelines for each step of the way. If you have something due Saturday, when do you start baking, decorating? So we kind of touched on this throughout this chat as far as timing wise, but the key is everybody's schedule is so crazy different. There's no way I could dictate a timeline for you, but pre-prepping and freezing your dough is huge. That way you can be ready and going anytime. If you have an order due Saturday, I usually like to decorate within about 3 days. If it's a small order, we're talking like 2 dozen kind of thing, I probably start 2 days ahead of the due date and just be done. Be baked to fully packaged in that time. As far as the decorating timeline itself, this kind of depends on where you live. A lot of the drier climates, your cookies dry out within a day, and that really sucks, but that's just a reality. And you have to move your cookies between like your bun rack to like a container and then back and forth as you work on the different layers, which is why I always prefer to do everything end to end and have it just done, so I don't have that transfer. If you absolutely have to, putting your cookies in an airtight container between layers works, and I've seen people do this successfully for like 3 to 5 days. I just don't like to do it. But if it works for you, it works for you. So there's not one quick answer to the timeline of decorating. It depends on what's going on. A lot of you are moms, like you've got children, you know, you can only decorate at that like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. time. So depending on that, you might even change up your habits. Where you put your cookies changes based on if you've got animals, if you've got kids, right? So it's a harder question to ask, and there's not necessarily a, here's what you can do. I can only tell you pre-prep your dough, pre-prep your icing. All right, let's see. All right, so there's somebody that asked a question about getting smooth, flat flood with no ripples. The rippling thing is really weird because personally, I've only experienced it less than like 3 times. One time, I had a dehydrator on that was way too freaking hot, mainly because I forgot to set my temperature down. So as it was drying, it was moving the air so quickly, causing ripples, and then drying them at the same time, right? So then my surface was very rippled. The other reason was, I believe there was something wrong with my actual flood icing that time, and I think it's because I used like emulsion or something in my icing because I thought I should get creative with flavoring. Screwed up my icing completely. There's one other time where it was just so freaking humid, and it's never like that humid in California, but this year there was a week where it rained and it was just like, I don't know, it felt like I was in a greenhouse, and I had slight rippling in my icing. And then the final time that I had rippling was when I overbeat my icing, and I've now made like meringue icing. I did this because I read on the internet when I was starting that you should beat your royal icing for 10 minutes on high. I don't know who the heck told me that. Can't even remember, but that was like, I made all these house cookies for somebody's like housewarming for Christmas. My icing would not dry because I overbeat it, and it dried with like ripples in the surface. So those are the things that might attribute to rippling. And then there's also a picture here. I'm gonna share my screen so you guys can see what I'm seeing. So I'm in the Facebook page right now. Somebody asked, you know, they got these farmhouse cookies here, and you can kind of see how it's kind of caved in. And that's usually because, and we touched on this earlier, how the icing isn't like freshly agitated or mixed when you piped it. Perhaps you've let it sit for a little while, or it's not adequately mixed while it's in the piping bag and you've let it sit. So anytime the meringue powder egg whites start to break down is when you see that structure start to fall away. And the bigger the cookie is, the more chance there is you can see of that dip, because we don't think about it, but we subconsciously add less icing to those big cookies. We add just enough to kind of cover the surface and be done, but sometimes in order to get a flat surface, you add a little bit more to your center to raise it up a little bit. See, it's not happening to her pigs, it's not happening to her cows, it's happening to this one big chunk that she flooded. Thick icing, flood enough. And I think that's it. I mean, we could talk about bleeding forever. Without pictures and without seeing your method, it's really hard. I would say one other thing about bleeding is underbeating your icing causes it to bleed because there's not enough structure. You haven't activated that meringue powder enough. Overbeating it causes huge bubbles and air to be in your icing, causing color to literally leach everywhere. I did want to touch on one other thing, and that was butter bleed. So there was somebody that posted about butter bleed in here. Wish it was an easy way to look at all the pictures. Okay. But butter bleed, we kind of touched on butter bleed, but I believe there was 1 or 2 people that got butter bleed on this recipe. It's basically where it looks like the oils from the cookie leached out onto your icing and causing these dark spots to show up on various parts of your icing. Your cookie could be the culprit, or your icing could be the culprit. Sometimes an underbaked cookie could result in that kind of behavior because the oils start leaching out. Everything's just not set. Alternatively, your icing is either, again, underbeat or overbeat for the same reasons that you get icing bleed. Another way people prevent that is they put their cookies on a paper towel. Some people have really, really like fatty cookie recipes, which is totally delicious and okay, but the butter bleed is super real. So shortbread cookies are notorious for butter bleed. Some people like to decorate their shortbread cookies. There's just so much fat on there, it's very difficult. One way to combat this is people paint a very thin layer of icing on the surface before they put their actual design on it to create a barrier. So you could get creative and do that as well.
Hey, Lisa.
Yep.
Somebody in the Facebook group, so by the way, thanks for clarifying the private Facebook group versus the other Facebook group. Yep. I didn't know that. And then somebody in the general Facebook group, Borderlands Facebook group, and I don't know how they did this, but I just would love to hear the answer, is they had white specks in their royal icing. I was like, how did you get that? How did that happen?
Is there a picture?
There is.
Let's
she
check
took
it out.
A picture of it. Her royal icing looks a little thin as well. So
look at it together.
Blue.
So this was in the general group, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. White specks. Okay, white. White spots. Is this it? Let's see.
There's pictures of it.
Ooh, it'd be really cool if this loaded. White spots.
I can find it.
Ooh, whoa.
There it is. Yep.
Okay, so her icing looks underbeat mainly because it looks like a glaze. That could be a problem, but that's a really funky thing. I'm not sure if I've seen that before. Kind of looks disturbing, yeah, like like a mold a little. Hold on, let me see what else people got. What's the icing made of? Only sugar and water. Her icing is only sugar and water. So it is a glaze. I have no idea why it's doing that. It almost looked like when mold blooms, but I don't think that's mold. So I don't know. Any ideas, guys? It's a weird one.
I think it's your glaze comment. I think that's what it is.
Glaze. Yeah, it looks so weird. And it only showed up on that one. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I am stumped. It will not be the only time that I'm stumped. Oh, all right. I think that's it for the Facebook questions. Any other things from you guys that you want to go over or chat about?
I feel like I'm talking a lot here, and I know I am, but I just have listed my questions as I was watching I was watching the course, reading, and then just doing things.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have something just exciting to share, and I'm going to share some photos of this.
Okay.
On your blog, the organizing of like all the sprinkles and things like that.
Yeah.
I had them in a big plastic box in my cupboard, one of those huge plastic boxes with the lids. I mean, it's huge. And I was just like, I can't with this anymore. And I don't have enough. I looked on Pinterest, I looked on your blog, and I don't have enough for like a cabinet with like doors, and I don't have that space. And so I'm really excited. I can't wait to post it because it looks so organized and it gets me so excited. And I bought like art bins, and I literally had to measure with a ruler and then measure the bottles and make sure everything fit. And I had to do some returns, but it's coming out looking amazing. And I can't wait to post pictures of it to show you guys because I get so excited about organization. I just love to be organized.
You're not going to be the only one. You're going to bring a lot of people happiness when you post that.
I love that. Hey, so question. So I've never done tip lists before.
Okay.
So back to that. And I feel a little challenged. Okay. And I'm using sharp scissors to cut it. I'm being very careful about cutting the tip. It's just not, I don't feel like it's flowing the right way. And I feel like my consistency is good, and I know I was using your tips about, have the seam towards you.
Facing up or towards you. Facing up.
And I've tried like different ways, and it just doesn't seem like it flows. And I've like watched your video, and I'm like looking at mine, I'm like, that doesn't look the same.
You ever take a picture? Not a picture. You ever take videos of yourself?
No.
Start doing that, because you're going to see things that you never thought you were doing that you're doing. Start there is my recommendation. And it's my recommendation actually for a lot of things, because there are so many things you do subconsciously that you'll notice after you look back on it. So small things, an example would be your angle that you operate at. You don't even realize what angle you're operating at. Sometimes you think you are at 45 degrees, you're probably not. How close or how far you are, when you touch down, when you let it drag drop, the actual distance between your paper or cookie and your icing. All those things you're only going to see if you videotape yourself. So just set your camera up. I propped mine up in like a tape dispenser for the longest time. You don't need anything fancy to hold your phone up, and videotape yourself doing some cookies. You're also going to notice little things that you do. So for example, when you're starting to pipe and you're adjusting the tip of your piping tip, some people squash it so thin that the icing doesn't come out round anymore. It comes out kind of flat. So you want to adjust that, make sure it's round. Some people don't touch down properly. Some people aren't even flooding properly. They're like making spaghetti, not even realizing it, instead of flooding. So I highly recommend taking videos.
I'm getting the flat. And why would I be doing that? Because I'm cutting on the seam like you demonstrated, but I'm getting the flat.
kind of have to adjust your tip a little bit. So pinch it back the other way a little bit to compensate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, anything else before we kind of wrap up here?
No, thanks. I'm good for now.
We're going to do another one of these next month, and I know it's going to be another busy month. So we'll make it, we'll do the best we can.
Thank you for everything, Lisa. This has been great.
Good. You're so welcome.
Thank you. So helpful.
Thank you.
Let us know if you got questions in that Facebook group.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, bye. Bye, kiddo.
Thanksgiving.
Love it.